Okay, so what is Urban Elite Pro Wrestling? It is an all grappling pro wrestling gym that focuses on the fundamentals of pro wrestling. However, is not a modern pro wrestling school. So it's not a space where one would learn how to work, for the modern day industry, but rather is a space that specializes in the grappling aspect of pro wrestling, which I truly believe is actually a service that is needed in today's, modern industry. Why? Well, the reason for that is because when you look at, let's say, catch wrestling, or you look at shoot wrestling or chain wrestling from the earliest stages, the vibrancy and the essence of it we've moved away from it. How? Well, just because, the tree has many branches these days, especially when it comes to pro wrestling. With pro wrestling, you had a certain, a certain root to it, which was catch wrestling, and then it evolved on and on. But eventually, obviously we started including strikes, started including weapons, started in branching out into new ideas that different schools started to emphasize in regards to whatever their students wanted to learn, or in regards to whatever the coach was trained into and kind of spent a lot of time working on, or working at, or working as. But at the same time, it's always so important to have some kind of foundation that provides you with that essence of a wrestler or a shooter that is missing, I dare say, is missing in a lot of the new products, because they're not produced like that anymore. That's why it's so important to create spaces like this. In my opinion, that's why I've created this space, because I truly believe that it is so important to have the foundation, regardless of if, your branch is deathmatch, or if your branch is high flying, right? Like lucha, that type of stuff. The groundwork, even though you might not even be doing it much, should always be a really solid foundation in grappling, because when you do have that groundwork, it's kind of like, even though you won't use it, it's always still good to do, because it is like having some kind of ritualistic reminder of what wrestling is and where it comes from, what pro wrestling is and where it comes from. And in having that, it really does something to the volume that is felt behind the work you're doing, regardless of whatever the work is for you pro wrestlers out there. And that's really important. A good example of that is music, right? If you listen to a song, let's say 10 or 20 years ago, if you listen to a song from 10 or 20 years ago that was made by Sellout, a boss just wanted him to make a song, he makes it, and then, you listen to it now and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so cringy. Can't believe I used to listen to that, right? But then you have a song, let's say, that's 40 years old, or even 50 years old, like an Elvis Presley song or a Michael Jackson song, or hell, even like Nirvana, just something that's very iconic and very timeless. Well, the reason for that is because of its essence. It's because it's, because we're feeling creatures. We don't watch things, we don't listen to things, we feel things. And so when things are really, like Nirvana, Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, they're tied to their roots, even if they, whatever their thoughts are on their past, they still have it in them. They include it in what it is that they're creating. And so when you have that kind of, and that's just an example, just to show you the difference between someone who's kind of acknowledged the roots and worked from there, rather than just someone that kind of doesn't really invest time in getting to know that part, getting to condition themselves to understand and acknowledge that part and to settle their feelings about it. Because whether you like it or not, no matter what branch you're from, you're still from the tree of grappling. You're from the tree of catch wrestling. You're from the tree of chain, and doing it right, not doing it lazy, which we see a lot these days. I mean, even like the high performers these days, we are very acrobatic heavy, and that's okay because it's just a work. But I mean, at the same time, the vibrancy, how long can it last if it doesn't look if it's more acrobatic rather than athletic heavy? You know, take Bret Hart for example. He's athletic heavy, not acrobatic heavy. There's acrobatic elements. Even Chris Benoit, he's athletic, not acrobatic heavy. So there's elements of acrobatics, but at the same time, the essence is so strong and so vibrant. Even today, if you watch them, man, I think I spend more time watching the guys from the 70s, 80s, 90s, even down to the 50s and 60s if I can like find a lot of that stuff, or if I can find a lot of that stuff on YouTube. Those guys have complete essence, complete vibrancy. They're wholesome. They feel so wholehearted. Whereas in today's modern day wrestling, although it still looks cool, I don't know how long that will last. Like I don't know if in 20 years time I'll look at it and be like, oh, that was actually pretty awesome. Or if like it'll have that same essence, or will it feel kind of like, oh, this looks more like gymnastics, you know? Um, Again, I'm not knocking that because we're all from the same tree. But it is, again, my opinion and just through how I interpret this entire thing. So yeah, but again, sorry, I've like steered off. When it comes to Urban Elite Pro Wrestling, the goal is to try and preserve that essence, preserve that vibrancy, preserve the the certain integrity that can only come through training like a legitimate wrestler, training like a legitimate grappler, and that's the beautiful thing about pro wrestling, is that it doesn't only cater to, or it doesn't have to just cater to workers. I mean, workers can come in here to develop a really solid foundation. They can learn a lot of cool new things, especially when it comes to technicality. But it also serves grapplers in general, because you can have like, I think a really good way to say it is like, in Urban Elite Pro Wrestling, I'm a catch wrestler to BJJ guys and to judo guys, but then I am, or anyone that comes out, any product that comes out of Urban Elite is a catch wrestler to BJJ guys and to judo guys, but then you're a chain wrestler to pro wrestlers, to pro wrestling workers and shooters. And so, yeah, that's pretty much like the gist of it. Still, working on articulating the vision as clear as possible. But, we're at such an early stage where I'm just vlogging everything, documenting everything, and whatever I kind of discover while going on this venture into a new dynamic, will just be, just there, So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's really what Urban Elite Pro Wrestling is all about.